Now I'd like to invite Maureen McDonald, who's president of the Rotary Club of Montague and Eastern PEI, to come forward and introduce the Premier.
Thanks, Emil. Head table guests, Rotarians, ladies and gentlemen. Dennis King has served as the 33rd Premier of Prince Edward Island since May 2019, after forming the first minority government in Prince Edward Island since 1890. Known for his collaborative leadership style, King actively seeks input from all parties on crucial government policies, legislation, and budget investments, a practice that he has maintained throughout his tenure. In April 2023, King and his Progressive Conservative Party were decisively re-elected by Islanders, winning 22 of 27 seats in the Legislative Assembly. As Premier, he has navigated major public events such as 2 hurricanes, cyber attacks, an international trade dispute, and the challenges presented by a global pandemic. Before being elected Premier of Prince Edward Island, King worked as a journalist and communications advisor, as an entrepreneur and industry executive, and as an author, broadcaster, and storyteller. King grew up in Georgetown, graduating from Montague Regional High School in 1990. He and his wife Jana live in Brookfield, and they are the proud parents of Jacob, Camden, and Colin. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Premier Dennis King.
Well, thank you very much, Maureen. Having coached both of her sons, Ryan and Ian, in hockey, that was much more gracious than it could have been, or should have been, but thank you very much. Just before I come up, our server was coming around and asked if he wanted coffee or tea, and I said I should have some coffee. I heard the speaker's pretty boring, and he was kind of looking at me. I don't think he knew I was joking. Or maybe he was worried I was serious. I don't know. Let me start with the big introductions that are here. Of course, I want to recognize Her Honor Antoinette Perry, the Lieutenant Governor of Prince Edward Island. Always good to share a meal with you. The Minister of Finance is here, Jill Burridge. As already announced, the Minister of Economic Development is here, Mr. Arsenault, and he's here too. The Minister of Social Development and Seniors, Barb Ramsey, is here. The Minister of Housing, Land and Communities, Rob Lance. The Minister of Sport, Tourism and Culture, Corey Deagle. MLAs from Charlottetown, Belvedere, Susie Dillon. From Winslow, Charlottetown, Winslow, and the Government Caucus Chair, Zach Bell. I see Carla Bernard is here, the leader of the third party, and you weren't on the list here, Peter, but the former leader of the third party is here, Peter Bevan Baker, as well, so welcome. His Worship Mayor Philip Brown is here. His Worship Hal Parker is here too, from beautiful community of Milton Vale Park. We have Greg Keefe, the interim president of UPEI. We have, of course, the Rotary District Governor Roger Sevigny, past district governors, Bob and Tom Wilkinson. And of course, Rotary presences who have been recognized here, Emil, Najam, Maureen, and Chad. So thank you very much. And of course, all of you Rotarians who are here and all of those who are joining us online tonight, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. And thank you, of course, to the Rotary Clubs of Prince Edward Island for coming together to put on this important event. When I think about the State of the Province address, it really comes down to this for me. Where are we at today? Where are we going tomorrow? And how are we going to get there together? So I look forward to sharing with you tonight some of those details. I will be honest and frank as I share my thoughts, as I always have been. I think Islanders expect that from their leaders. And since I've been elected in 2019, through some of the incidents that Maureen shared at the offset, that we've been able to form a close connection together as we dealt with some of the most challenging issues of our time by having hard, honest, open, and heartfelt conversations. But I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to acknowledge the important work that you do as Rotarians and all that you have been able to accomplish these past few years. Not only do you play host to this important address each year, but you work tirelessly behind the scenes to accomplish great things, such as the Imagination Library, Youth Parliament, the Rotary Literacy Foundation, the annual Council of the Federation Literacy Award, and last and certainly not least, every Tuesday night you bring us the nostalgia of the Rotary Radio Bingo. Moments that I got to share with my late mom over and over again, and we treasure them greatly, where family, friends, and neighbors gather around the kitchen table and socialize and have a conversation without screens or interruptions. We just talk like we used to in the old days, and thank you so much for doing it. But it goes without saying that the work you do in communities large and small, urban and rural, is impactful. I can say without a doubt that our province is a better place because of Rotarians. So thank you for everything that you do individually, collectively, to build a better future for Islanders of all ages. From the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. You know, when I think back to my first State of the Province address in 2020, it was a much different time, pre-pandemic, pre-hurricanes, pre-trade disruptions, and so many other challenges that we have been faced with as a province, as a country, and as a society. We are here tonight to talk about the state of our province, but we have to acknowledge within that the state of our nation and, in fact, the state of our world. It goes without saying that we're living in very trying times, challenging times, unprecedented times. The fighting in Ukraine and Gaza, the political uncertainty in the United States, the shift in tone and tenor in Canadian politics, global warming and climate change, and what has been, I think, a significant shift from the broad global cooperation, I'm here for my friends and neighbors approach, to what's become, sadly, a more protectionist, I'm going to look after my own front step approach. And these are troubling situations and factors that are shifting the world as we know it. And those impacts are being felt here, and sadly, they're going to be continue to be felt here for time, for a long time. The world and our part in it has changed. It's also hard, perhaps even irresponsible, to talk about the state of our province without addressing the state of our citizens. I'm going to ask you just to pause for a second and think, just reflect on how each of us feel, not just where we are as a province, as a country, but as a society, how we feel as individuals. Enduring what we have endured has changed us. It's changed you, and it's changed me. I think 2020, Denny was much more outgoing, jovial, and optimistic. Today, it takes a little more effort for me to summon the courage to stand up here in front of you. And while I'm still really, really optimistic, I think I'm much more subdued, way more reclusive than I was before. And though I try really hard to push through that and find my way back to where I was, back to normal, so to speak, it's really, really tough. And I think all Islanders can relate to that. Our frustrations are magnified, our mental health is challenged. We watch the news too often with heartache, with stories of horrific events, natural disasters, man-made wars. We pick up the newspaper and hear of young people taken from us because of guns or drugs or because the carelessness of someone getting behind the wheel when they had too much to drink. I'm not here to make it worse, but I think it's important to recognize that those feelings you have, that sense of worry, that sense of angst, that apprehension, it's not just you. It's the person beside you, it's the person in front of you, it's the person behind you. And to state the rather obvious, we've been through an awful lot. Like you, I think I had hoped we would go back to normal as quickly as possible. But I think we have to begin to accept the reality that there is no going back. I think we find ourselves on the other side of the river. We have a different perspective of a different view. We have the same challenges, perhaps more, and we also have the same opportunities, and I think we have more of them as well. We have the same desire for our province to be a great place to live, work, and to raise a family. So let us start there tonight, recognizing that the path that has gotten us to here and the path that we will need to take, the path that we'll need to build to get where we're going to go together, need to be done together. But I'll also preface one final preface of my comments to restate something to you that I feel I've said time and again since I first entered the race for the leadership of the PC party all those years ago now. As we make our way through the difficult issues that require complex solutions, I don't care about the politics. I understand the nature of the profession of which I'm involved in. I have no doubt that the people throughout this room or are tuned in online may be somewhat engaged in the political process. Some of you may support political parties. Maybe a few of you even support me or my party. But the next election is 2027. We can fight over the politics then. Until then, I think we owe it to Islanders to work together. All parties, all MLAs, all Islanders. I know and I feel in my soul that we can find the solutions that we're looking for that will better the lives of Islanders from tip to tip if we could dial down the rhetoric, the political posturing, and focus our efforts to serve the people we need to serve. Now, some of you might think that's Pollyanna, and perhaps it is. But let me point out this example. How many times have you run into somebody and they say, when it pertains to health care, we can't keep doing what we're doing? 10 or 15 of you talked to me tonight and we said pretty much the same thing. We all agree on this. But here's our dilemma. As Islanders, we're not really fond of change. And then you throw in the cut and thrust of partisan politics, which of course drives the media narrative and feeds the social media beast on a moment-by-moment basis. So where do we end up? Somebody stands up and talks about doing something different. Let me use the UPEI Medical School as a classic example. And what is it first met with? Fear, anger, divide. The whole focus on the conversation has been, what if we do this? What is the cost if we do it? And I stand before you tonight and I say, honestly, why aren't we asking the most important question? What is the cost if we don't? I'm a firm believer in the old adage that if you believe you can and you believe you can't, they're both right. I have to believe we can, because I know we can't keep doing it the same way. I know we have to move in a different direction with a different focus, and we have to change how we train, recruit, and retain doctors. I accept that it won't be without challenges. I accept it will mean changes to how we deliver health care, and in some cases, who delivers that health care. I accept the questioning and the critique, but I don't accept the conversation around the politics of it. Which party gets hurt or which leader benefits. I simply don't care. If we can make our province better and we can get it done, we should do it. Full stop. That's what we should do. And let me tell you this, And I say to you tonight as your Premier, if there's a political cost to pay, then I'll tell you this, I'll gladly pay it today, because it will make for a better tomorrow for the people of the province that I love and serve, and that's the way it should be done. Oh, thank you. Okay. Let's start off where we are as a province. Let's start with the finances. Minister Burridge is here. Despite having everything but the kitchen sink thrown at us over the last number of years and having to spend money rapidly to try to support Islanders through very trying times, we're in good economic shape. Since we've come to government, we've tabled 5 provincial budgets. We've only had one of those budgets end in a deficit of about $5.7 million. So we've spent, but we've done so within our means, and that has positioned us, with revenues continuing to grow, to be in the responsible position now to make the record investments we need to make to continue to support Islanders from all walks of life. our economy, throughout many challenges, remains very strong. That's because our labor force has grown immensely over the last number of years. In 2023, employment increased by 5.7%, about 4,800 jobs, to an all-time high in this province of 89,000 Islanders in the labor force. And we're seeing increases in employment in all sectors. In 2023 alone, we've seen employment gains by 17.5% in healthcare and social assistance, 18.8% in accommodation and food, services, 32% in finance, insurance, and real estate, and 24% in agriculture. And what that tells me, and what it should tell you, is that our workforce isn't just growing, it's diversifying. It's growing not only in one sector or one industry, it's growing across the board, and most industries are actually are experiencing growth, which makes us as a province stronger and much more stable. At the same time, we're also seeing the lowest unemployment rates in our province's history. In 2023, unemployment averaged out at 7.3%. That's down 0.3% from last year, and again, is the lowest annual rate on record for our province. Along the way, wages continue to increase. Our wages in PEI in 2023 increased 3.8% as compared to the year before. And at the same time, we've introduced dramatic increases to child care fees, decreases, sorry. I should be wearing glasses up here, but I'm still too vain to wear them in public. Dramatic decreases in our child care fees over the last 2 years. That makes it more economical for parents to return to the workforce, which is something that was really stalled during and right after COVID. In fact, 6 weeks ago, we became one of the first provinces in Canada to reduce child care fees to all families in registered early learning centers and at-home licensed centers to $10 a day across the board. This helps with affordability. This helps with ensuring our children get the best start in life, but it's also a key contributing factor to our growing economy and our growing workforce. Now, I don't want to come here tonight and bore you with economic stats. I promised you in 2020 I wouldn't do that. But I don't just want to throw out a bunch of positive indicators to you and pretend everything is perfect and that there's nothing that needs to be worried about or worked upon. As a government, we know there's a lot of heavy lifting to do in many areas. And tonight I'm going to focus on 3 key areas, those being healthcare, housing, and affordability. So let us start with healthcare, something that impacts each and every one of us. Ours is a challenging, complex, and interconnected system on which we spend over $1 billion annually in this province. We know that Islanders deserve accessible health care when they need it, and that will continue to take change, modification, and adaptations, not just by those who access the service, by those who deliver the service. This hasn't been and won't be easy. It sometimes can seem quite daunting, but the only way to progress is to continue to show up every day and grind as hard as you can to make the system as a whole better. Sometimes it may not feel like it, some days it may not feel like it, but we've made significant positive strides. In 5 years, we've been able to do things like the launch of Pharmacy Plus, a program which allows pharmacists across the province to assess and treat for 35 common ailments. So far, since October 2022, this program has allowed over 48,000 individual Islanders to access care closer to home by completing over 90,000 assessments in just 16 months. We've launched the new system for primary care in this province. You've heard us talk about it, Patient Medical Homes, which allows providers to work collaboratively with allied health providers to provide more efficient and effective care for patients. This model is the envy of the rest of the country. In fact, when I talked to Dr. Preston Smith, who's the new Dean of Medicine at UPEI, he told me he wouldn't have taken the job at UPEI if it wasn't for us, the province, implementing the model of care throughout the province and to being one of the leaders in the country around that. That's pretty high praise. We've launched a single point of access line for those seeking mental health and addictions in this province. In 2023 alone, this service helped provide over 6,300 interventions for Islanders to get the help and care they need. We've launched the mobile mental health units to meet patients where they're at, physically and emotionally, who provide care, and to those who are suffering from mental health and addictions in our province. And tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., the Mental Health and Addictions Emergency Departments and Short Stay Unit at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, the first of its kind in Atlantic, Canada, will open its doors and provide 24/7 mental health emergency services for those in a crisis situation. And in the coming months, an adjacent 72-hour short stay unit will be opening in that very same space. We've created pathways for those who don't have a primary care provider to access virtual care on the Maple app, and offering in-person appointments at our PCACs, which we call the Primary Care Access Clinics, should the individual not be able to be treated virtually. These two initiatives have provided care for over 40,000 Islanders since starting in September 2022. We've launched the virtual hallway platform to allow for peer-to-peer consultations with specialist physicians both in PEI and in Nova Scotia to provide patients more timely access to specialized care. And since May 2023, this platform has facilitated over 432 consults for Islanders. In addition to that, we've signed the historic PharmaCare deal with the federal government that has reduced co-pays for individuals to $5 for many prescriptions and allowed us to be the first jurisdiction in the country to provide substance use harm and harm reduction drugs free for all Islanders. So while these initiatives and many others will help us get quicker and better access to care for thousands of Islanders, we all know that no matter what innovative solutions that we implement or create, that the biggest challenge we face in healthcare comes back to one thing: the scarcity of healthcare professionals to provide the care. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings me back to my prior comments about how we can't keep doing what we're doing and expecting a different result. If we want to improve the system, we need to change the system. We need to make room for more professionals to provide care to Islanders. And that's why we've created more RN spaces at the University of Prince Edward Island, and we're funding free tuition for RCWs, LPNs, and paramedics with a return and service agreement to stay and work in PEI. That's why we expanded training opportunities for our RCWs, and we're training them not just at Holland College, but throughout the province. That's why we're increasing our residency seats from 5 to 7 with a plan to expand in the years to come. That's why we've expanded the number of seats in the primary care and advanced care medicine program at Holland College. And that's why we've worked to cut the red tape around physician licensing that allows physicians from 7 countries around the world expedited pathways to get licensed here in PEI as fast as possible. That's why we created the Atlantic Physician Registry, so that physicians throughout the region can come back and forth without having the burden of all the paperwork and the lengthy licensing process that was in place before. That's why we've created positions for associate physicians and physician assistants with the help and support of Dr. George Carruthers, both of which are in the final stages of hiring in the initial wave of candidates and integrating into our system. And we will continue to work with Dr. Carruthers and his team at the college to create other pathways for medical graduates who haven't been placed in their residency yet, and we will provide a special level of care to reduce the burden in the system. So what we're saying is, we got physician assistants, we got the APs. There's going to be another level in the weeks ahead where we can keep putting people into our system to make sure that we can get as best service as we can while we continue to recruit high-end professionals. That's why we created pathways for internationally educated nurses from jurisdictions around the world to come to PEI and to join our healthcare team as registered nurses. And so far, we've had 3 extremely successful international recruitment missions, 1 to Singapore and 2 to Dubai, that have resulted in 113 job offers for nurses to come to PEI. And last but not least, that's why we're supporting UPEI to build a medical school right here in Prince Edward Island. Because what we know is that 75% of new physicians want to work somewhere where they can teach in the future. And we know that 80% of those who complete a residency tend to stay where they train. And the reality is, as I said earlier, there is a sense of retraction and protectionism in our society today. We need to take a little greater control of our own destiny. We can't continue to rely on other provinces and other institutions to willingly train island students when they are experiencing the similar challenges and the same challenges in their own jurisdictions. Let me just tell you this. This is the stat that says it all to me. Only 1 in 11 island students applying for medical school gets accepted. In other jurisdictions like Newfoundland and Labrador, it's 1 in 2. We have bright young minds here, eager and willing to embark on a journey to become a physician. They should have the same opportunities as any other Canadian. And by having a medical school right here in Prince Edward Island, at the University of Prince Edward Island, those opportunities will become a reality. And that, I argue, is what we should be doing and we should have done 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. We should have done it yesterday. But, again, all of those initiatives, all of those investments, that's not going to fix healthcare overnight. Now, the opposition likes to take runs at me when I say that, but it is the truth. If the fixes were easy, they'd be done. It's just the reality that many of these initiatives, like the medical school, for example, will take time for our province and our system to see the full benefits. But we need to make those investments today. And we're making great progress, as I say. Let's use the patient medical homes as another example. We opened our first 5 medical homes in April of 2022. It's taken time to tweak the model, to find efficiencies, to work out the kinks. Today, we have 17 patient medical homes operational. And about 1,000 islanders will come off the patient registry this month. This month, in February 2024, will be the first month in over a decade where our province has seen more patients come off the registry that went on the registry. Now, I know we have much further to go, but that's a good start. And it's a sign that while it's taken longer than I or anyone else would have wanted, that we're starting to see the benefits of the investments and that we have been making in healthcare. And I've had a number of people stop me tonight and say that their loved one was in the hospital and needed help and couldn't speak any more glowingly about the level of service and the high-end level of service and healthcare delivery that you get in this province. And I think we should start talking more about that. We'll continue to work night and day because that's what the job entails, to pull every lever we can to make things better. Here's another example for you. Just last week, Minister Mark McLean and I met with the Long-Term Care Association organization. We expressed our desire to get more beds licensed so that we can move more ALC patients out of our hospitals. I've heard Dr. Trevor Jane talk about this time and again, how it creates a problem with our bed flow when we have people in the beds when they're not moving through the system. So not only will this allow for better patient flow throughout our system, it will alleviate pressures in our emergency department, and it's better care for the individuals who are in those beds. Within 24 hours of that meeting, we had a proposal to add 54 new LTC beds within 30 days. So for context, that would see every patient who's in a hospital bed awaiting a long-term care bed today the ability to be transferred to an appropriate facility within 30 days of the beds being licensed. That's the kind of innovation and thinking that we need from our partners to get better results for Islanders. Now, yeah, that's a good clap. Thank you. Now, I know there's a much longer waiting list than just those who are currently in the hospital, so we can't stop there. We've asked for a plan for medium and long-term solutions as well, including building and licensing hundreds more beds across the province. I know that will need support if they're to expand adequately and quickly. We have committed to being there every step of the way. such as doing things like continuing to reduce the wage gap between public and private long-term care homes. And not to take too much of the steam from my colleagues' address later this week, but in the budget coming up, we will take the first steps in doing that, just that. We're going to close the gap between the wages between the public sector and the private sector when it comes to long-term care. They will need our support to help with their innovations, solutions like a mobile X-ray unit for residents. So rather than taking residents from the home, we will take the X-ray machine to the home, which is easier for the resident and it causes less strain on the system in general. So we'll help with that. It's an amazing innovation for all of us. I'm sharing you these few examples tonight to give you some insight into the complexities, of course, of healthcare. And how we go about delivering it in today's world. I say again, there are no silver bullets. There are no simple solutions. It involves constant effort, challenging the status quo sometimes, and putting our shoulders to the wheel day in and day out to make progress. And my friends, that's what I do every day. That's what Minister Mark McLean does every day. It's what acting Health PEI CEO Corinne Roswell does every day. It's what I hope our incoming CEO, Melanie Fraser, will do. It's what Dr. Trevor Jane does. It's what our nurses and doctors and all of our healthcare providers do. Even if others incessantly suggest otherwise, it's bigger than one person. It's bigger than just government. It takes each and every one of us from tip to tip to come together, to believe we can do things differently, to put our shoulder to the wheel and get things done. So to me, our choice is simple. Even if the path ahead isn't. We must not stop working to be better, and by gosh, it's much, much easier if we're doing it together instead of doing it apart. Now, while healthcare is one of our central focuses, obviously, of the government, it's not the only area that needs our focus and attention. We've talked a lot in recent years about the challenges we're facing here in PEI when it comes to housing. Again, it's not just PEI that's feeling the pinch. It's the entire country and beyond. I've watched in the last few weeks as our Prime Minister zigzagged the country investing billions of dollars in housing to help try to move the markets. And I will say before, I've said it again, and I'll say it until it's not true. But the federal government has been a strong and willing partner on the housing file when it comes to Prince Edward Island. Thank you. I've had many meetings, as says my colleague Rob Lance, with the Federal Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities, Sean Fraser, over the last number of months. He has the same philosophy as we do, as many other Canadians do, and that is that we need more housing now, and we need to work together to get it built as fast as possible. Just last week, Minister Lance released the province's housing strategy for the next 5 years, entitled Building Together. Now, I'm sure most of you were home Friday night flipping through that strategy like I was and studying every word extensively. For those of you who haven't, I will share some of the things that we've done and share some of the plan as how we go about catching up in our province so that generations to come have suitable places to live as they work and raise a family right here in Prince Edward Island. To say, to state the truth, we've been playing significant catch-up with the housing file for some time. In fact, 2014 was the last year that PEI's housing starts outpaced our population growth. And while the ground has shifted many times with things like the national building codes coming online, the new Municipal Government Act, rising interest rates and other factors, some of which are beyond our control, we have made some progress inside of that. For example, in 2019, our government committed to creating 1,200 affordable units in 4 years. And although we created over 1,300 in that time frame, we know we still need more. From 2019 to 2023, we had the highest number of housing starts in a 5-year period in our province's history. We introduced the Affordable Housing Development Program in 2019, providing developers up to $55,000 per door to keep units affordable and it's helped add 276 new units into our inventory of affordable units, along with an additional 342 market units. We've built over 358 social housing units since 2019, an all-time high for any government. For the 7 years before our government was in power, there was no new net housing units added to the government registry. Since 2019, our capital investment in the creation of new social housing units has increased by 496%, from 10.9 million to 65 million. Since 2022, we've purchased 104 private market units to add to our affordable housing unit inventory as well. We've doubled the home renovation grants, created over 100 new shelter beds, invested in transitional housing, structured housing, and assisted living units across the province. We've partnered with the Construction Association of Prince Edward Island, with Holland College and the Public Schools branch to build tiny and small home options for Islanders. And in the last 18 months alone, we provided $125 million at 2% financing to private developers to support the construction of 613 net new units for our province. But as we know, despite these wonderful efforts, we still need more. And the strategy that Minister Lance released last week provides a roadmap to help build more. We need to continue with the programs we have, but we need to expand and take a look from within as to what we can do as a government to help expedite building homes here in this province. Minister Lance's plan speaks to the need to incentivize and provide support to encourage both the private sector and the not-for-profit sector to increase the rental supply with a focus on building high-density buildings. It commits to reviewing and modernizing regulations to support building faster. It focuses on working with Minister Jen Redmond to create a workforce plan with the Construction Association of PEI to grow the construction workforce. Despite it being at an all-time high of over 8,000 jobs in this province, we need more, and we need many more. It talks about speeding up building permits and finding pathways for instant building permits for simple, straightforward projects. It talks about working with our municipalities to create plans and concepts that reduce the need for regulation. It talks about finding new pathways for individuals to get to home ownership, such as accessing our new rent-to-own program, which we now offer, or looking at unique models like cooperative housing. It talks about the need for PEI to take a serious look at modular builds and exploring having a facility to manufacture modular builds right here in Prince Edward Island. These are all great initiatives. They will help expedite increasing the housing inventory in our province, but like I mentioned to you before, they require change, and it will force governments to be critical of itself and themselves. It will force us to look at government processes and ask ourselves why we do something and if that's really required. It will force us to take a look at new innovative ways to do business, like exploring a barrier-free development environment where the developer can put up a bond, for example, in good faith to follow the rules and regulations set out for a new development. Island developers know these rules. They can quote them chapter and verse. They know how to build. I think we can give them a checklist of things that they need to complete and let them build instead of making them wait around and interact with governments for months and getting the old government run around from 3 or 4 different departments before they can make ground. We're in a crisis situation. Let's work faster. But we also need to look within and take a look at the measures we have in place as a government that may be prohibiting development. Like, I'll give you an example, the special planning areas that prohibit development in certain areas of the province. Is now really the time to continue with these special planning areas when we know there are people looking to develop, where we know we need houses and they can build them quickly? There are things that we need to continue to be focused on. But again, I will point out, change is hard. Change is difficult. But if we keep doing the same things over and over again, we aren't going to make the progress we're going to need, and Islanders in our province will continue to fall behind, and that should not be acceptable to any one of us. Now, before I move on to the final topic I want to talk about tonight, I feel like I can't stand here and talk about the challenges we have in healthcare and housing and our plan to move forward without talking to you about our population growth. For years, Prince Edward Island has been the fastest growing province per capita in the country, in many cases far outpacing our provincial counterparts for many years now. In many ways, that's a really great and wonderful thing. A growing population provides more tax revenue to make the necessary investments we need to make in public services. It's a sign that the quality of life here is attractive to those living elsewhere. And it provides our communities, large and small, rural and urban, with greater diversity and more culture. But along with population growth comes challenges. And for over a decade, the reality is our population was outpacing our growth in many areas like healthcare, housing, education, and core infrastructure. What's shocking to many when it's explained is that as a province, we actually have very limited levers that we can pull or push to speed up or slow down population growth. Any Canadian under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is allowed to move freely throughout the country, and we know that because we've seen an influx of it during and right after COVID. I'm sure everyone in this room knows the examples of individuals who chose to move to PEI during COVID because we were seen as a safe place to live, or their personal priorities changed and the hustle and bustle of major centers like Toronto or Calgary or Vancouver suddenly weren't as attractive as being 20 minutes from the beach on PEI. And can you blame them? Our province saw unprecedented growth over the last 3 years. 2021 was the first time our population grew by over 4,000 people in a year. 2022, we saw over 5,000. And last year, we saw almost 7,000 individuals move to PEI. That's the equivalent of adding the town of Cornwall to our province in just 12 months. And that isn't sustainable. So last week, our government made the announcement that we would be slowing down our population growth using the one lever we have, immigration. We will be sponsoring 25% less individuals in 2024 than we did in 2023, and we will be evaluating that as we grow. But there are 3 things I want to mention about that decision. 1, we're not stopping or pausing immigration. We're simply trying to tamp it down the best we can using the levers we have. 2, we're only doing this to allow for services like healthcare, education, our early years, and our housing inventory to catch up, to allow both current residents and future residents an opportunity to live, work, and raise a family here very comfortably. And 3, we are refocusing our immigration program to help with the workforce, to expand services and build the required infrastructure we need in this province. We're going to be focusing our efforts on healthcare workers, on trades workers, early education leaders and learners, manufacturing, and individuals who help support primary industries like fisheries, tourism, and agriculture. This decision, as you can imagine, was not taken lightly. It was considered from many angles and will be evaluated constantly to ensure if we have to go further or if we have to loosen the measures, we will do that. We will do what's best for our province and the future of the people who live here. Now, last but certainly not least, I want to talk on another topic that many Islanders and many Canadians are facing right now, and that is affordability. Again, our province, Prince Edward Island, is not unique in this. It's every jurisdiction across the country and many from around the world. The post-pandemic world saw Bank of Canada interest rates rise, fuel prices skyrocket, and the price of groceries soar. Again, many of these things are out of our control as Islanders or as your provincial government, but we know we needed to act and respond just like we have with every other challenge that we faced, everything else that's been thrown our way, and we did. Initiatives like freezing property taxes for 2 years in a row and then rolling them back to 2020 levels. We've issued emergency payments to Islanders twice, totaling over $50 million. We've increased social assistance rates 4 times in 5 years, which has our social programs here in PEI being recognized as one of the strongest social support networks in the country. I talked earlier about $10 a day daycare. We had free half-day pre-K for 4-year-olds. We continue to offer tip-to-tip Toonie Transit, free heat pumps for households making under $100,000 a year, a pay-what-you-can hot, healthy school lunch program. We froze the rents. It wasn't great popular in many places for over 17,000 Islanders. We provided over $20 million in mobile rental vouchers to make the cost of housing a little more affordable. We increased fundings to NGOs to support their clients. We increased investments in the Seniors Home Repair Program and the Seniors Independence Programs. And we pay for free school supplies for students, rated from K to grade 11, I believe, or 10? 9, thank you. We are increasing the George Coles bursary and provided the shingles vaccine free for seniors. I could go on with the many other initiatives, but the reality is, we have to do these things. Our government needs to be nimble, and I think we've proven we have been, and to do what we can, where we can, to help Islanders in their everyday journey in what can sometimes be a difficult and challenging life. And it's not lost on me or my colleagues that we know the cost of living is impacting thousands of Islanders here in our province. I speak with my counterparts across the country regularly, and they're experiencing the same things. Rising price of groceries, the rising cost of housing, clothing, gas, furnace oil. It's all gone up. But the good thing is we're starting to see a little bit of reprieve. Just last week, Stats Canada released the inflation numbers for January, and PEI's inflation rate fell a full percentage point to 1.6%, and we were the highest for a long time, and now we're the second lowest in the country. Yeah. Well, that's a positive sign. We do have to look at the facts. All of our goods come and go from our province by truck. We know that between inflation, things like the carbon tax and the cost of trucking goods, that's going to continue to have pressures on our grocery supply in the years to come. So knowing that, we need to have a plan. We need to plan ahead and be methodical in what we can do and how we do it. So, for example, Minister Burridge, as I said, introduced one of the largest personal income tax reforms ever seen in our province last spring. You'll see more from the budget in the coming weeks, but this will result in keeping over $14 million in the pockets of Islanders this year, this fiscal year alone, with that initiative. We are also looking at more consistent and predictable support programs for Island families instead of one-time programs or emergency payments. And now I know some of my colleagues are going to walk up here and unplug the sound system pretty soon if I keep giving away too much of what might be in the coming budget. But let's just say that we'll be introducing a program to support families across the province in this budget that will support families not just later this year, but for many years to come. How about that, Jill, for a little teaser there? And of course, we're looking just beyond one program. We're always evaluating things like our efficiency programs to see if we can include more people and let those programs do more to make the lives of Islanders a little less reliant on carbon. We're looking to make life more affordable for our students. We're looking at helping seniors stay in their homes even longer. We're looking at ways to help primary caregivers to keep their loved ones at home longer. All of these initiatives, all of these programs combined help make life a little bit more affordable, a little bit more easier for each and every Islander, and that should be our goal. And isn't that what we should expect from our government? To do everything we can for as long as we can to make life a little bit more enjoyable, a little bit more affordable, and hopefully just a little bit easier for all Islanders. So, my friends, thank you for your patience here tonight. I know I've shared a lot with you in a short time, hoping to give you a little insight into some of the challenges we're facing and the plans that we've laid out to address those challenges. I hope I've also shared with you some of that optimism that I have that I talked about, that still gets me out of bed every morning, makes me want to contribute to the positive solutions that are out there, and makes me want to continue to serve Islanders. And I will share in closing, of course, that My optimism is fueled by how I started my address with you this evening, the fact that we aren't going back to normal. That kind of keeps me going. It's knowing that we have started a fresh chapter in our history, a chapter that hasn't been written, a chapter that has blank pages for us to fill and opportunities for us to explore. We can do so much more for our province during this time of transition. This is a time for our province to be bold. This is a time for our province to leave no stone unturned. This is the time for our province to pursue progress and to create new opportunities. This is the time for our province to ask what it costs if we don't do it, instead of that incessant, backward-looking, what if we change motto that has held us back for far too long. This is the time for our province to dream big, to take risks, to seize every opportunity that comes our way. And my friends, I'll leave you with this. I believe in my heart, and I believe it every day, as great as we are as a province, the best for us is yet to come. Let's work together to make sure we can achieve it. Thank you very much. Merci. Well,